So today is lesson 6, and I'll just go back and show again quickly our demo project. So this is where we're going with what we want our app to look like and how we want it to function by the end of class today. So if you're watching this asynchronously, you can follow along we'll go over all the code at the end of class today, and you'll need to publish your own version to GitHub and share the link with me before next week's class for your weekly learning activity mark. If you're in the synchronous session, you're going to work in a group today. So our app is going to open to our list page. We're going to add floating action buttons to navigate between our list and our main activity. And then on our list, our items are clickable. They'll open up. We're going to create a new activity. The XML for this is already on Blackboard. So I can add a new comment and it will be attached to my selected restaurant. When I click save, the comment gets added to Firebase, but it only displays for this restaurant. It won't display for the others. So we'll have related data in a separate comments collection. So I've given you the XML you need. I've also given you on Blackboard, so you can find those two items here, the activity restaurant and the item restaurant. So we won't spend class time building that UI today. So I'm going to open up my project from last week. We'll see where we left off with it. We're certainly going to want to add the navigation and reorder we want to modify the startup activity so it loads our list. Then we can download the XML templates for these new files. And then you guys, I'll stop my recording and you guys can work in your breakout groups on the code that we're going to need. And I'll have to give you a few hints because there are going to be a few things we haven't done before. They're kind of variations on things that we've done. So I will open up I'll leave this window running in case we want to refer back to it. But I'll open up the Restorator app. So we're not going to create any other projects. Everything else we do within the semester, it's going to be added to the Restorator. So later, we want to work with the camera and add photos. We want to work with Google Maps. We'll integrate all of these features into this existing app. So we'll have one fully kind of more robust app. I know that was one of the other suggestions somebody made in the comments is, can we stop building new apps each week and build something bigger that adds all the features? Yes, we are going to do that. So I'm just going to launch my app. In the emulator. And then we'll start making some changes to it. So here's our Restorator. It opens up with adding a new restaurant. And if we look at the code in our main activity, I guess we hadn't quite. Actually, let's see. It's loading my form, but I'm going to change my Android manifest so that it loads our list activity by default instead. And now that I think about it, it looks like we hadn't quite completed the code to populate our RecyclerView. So let's do that first. So maybe what I'll do, I'll just close all my files up. First thing I want to do is open up Android manifest.xml. So I got a little bit ahead of myself, didn't realize we hadn't quite finished that page last week. So what would we need to do here so that when our app loads, it loads our list activity instead of loading our main activity? We checked that we are able to save to Firebase, but right now we can't actually see in our app any of the data. So right now our main activity is set as our startup activity. We want to change it so that our list activity loads by default. What should we do? Yep, we can move the intent filter that's inside of the main activity. I'm going to move that inside of the list activity node instead. And I should nest properly, nest my tags. So if I relaunch the activity, if I relaunch my activity, it should now start with our list activity instead. Excuse me. So I forgot that we hadn't quite finished this file and our list isn't populated yet. So we get our list activity, it says our restaurants, but our RecyclerView, we haven't actually finished the code here. So it's loading the correct activity, but our RecyclerView is empty. So I'm going to open it up. I'll go and open my list activity. So we set things up here. What have we done so far? Well, we've instantiated a connection to our database. We've set our RecyclerView to use a linear layout so that we can display the restaurant name and the rating. We've queried Firestore. We're querying the restaurant collection to fetch the list of documents and sort them by restaurant name. So I'll just open up my Firebase console just so we can look at the database. Always going to be useful to log into your Firebase console when you come to class, because we're going to be working with Firebase, not every lesson, but most lessons from here on. I don't really need to do this. I'm already connected. So I've already got a bunch of restaurants in here, but none of them are showing up. None of them are showing up yet. So we've created two classes, a view holder, which is used to bind the data, and the adapter that's used to bind it, and the view holder that basically represents the data in our view. So we had to implement this interface, which has two members, on create and on bind. So we now need to add the code in here that will populate our resource layout, our item restaurant.xml. So in this template, this template represents one row in the recycler view. And there's a text view that will display the name of the restaurant. And we have a rating bar with up to 5 stars. And we want to show the correct number of stars on the rating bar.
Hey, Rich, the code which you gave in the Blackboard, it has a text view instead of the rating bar. Should we change that?
Okay, the code I put on Blackboard is for later in the lesson. It's not for this part. It's for another activity.
Okay.
So we'll get there, but we need to finish this first.
Okay.
So we're in our list activity right now. So we're going to need to flesh out our onCreate view holder and onBind view holder. And then we're going to need to bind our query to our adapter. And then we also need to tell our RecyclerView to watch for changes. So anytime the data changes, our RecyclerView will automatically update. So inside our onCreate, for me it's on line 37, we have this to do not yet implemented. So I'm going to remove this. So the first thing we need to do is inflate the item restaurant.xml layout template to populate the RecyclerView. So we have this layout template, but right now there's no connection to our RecyclerView. We just have a RecyclerView. So at runtime, we need to basically specify the layout template for this. So we're going to use a layout inflator. From our parent context, and we call the inflate method. And this is where we link it to our item restaurant layout. We'll need to import the layout inflator class. And then we need to return our view holder. With our layout inflator. So this connects our item template with the view holder. Otherwise, we have an activity and we've got a layout template for our RecyclerView, but they're not connected at all. The other thing I used the other day, which was helpful, let me just go here. I know getting the code you need from the chat can be challenging. So we're going to put it here instead. This might be easier. So what did I import? The import that I made is the layout inflator class here, android.view.layoutinflator. So basically we have a holder, our RecyclerView, and we have to supply at runtime the XML template that is used to populate that control. So I imported android.view.layoutinflator. And then we connect in our item restaurant template and return the view holder. So that connects this XML template. We also now need our bind. Good question. Why is it called an inflator? That's a good question, Hayden. Let's actually check the documentation. It's kind of a strange name. Let's see what Google says in terms of the docs, how it describes it, and whether it describes it in plain language. So it instantiates a layout XML file into its corresponding view object. It's never used directly. It's a good explanation of what it does. Doesn't really tell us why it's called Inflator. In a way, it's almost like, I mean, it's similar to instantiating an object in a sense, but we're not instantiating an object. The object already exists. We're basically binding a layout object into a container, I guess would be the way to think about it. But it is a bit of a strange term, inflate. I agree. So now what do you suppose we would have to do in the bind view holder? If the create view holder, yeah, I guess that's a good way of putting it. We're adding a layout to an existing view. We're adding it to the RecyclerView. So in the onCreate method, we are connecting our RecyclerView. We're connecting the view holder, I guess, to the template. So what would we need to do on bind? For each item in our data set, so again, here's our template. We've got a text view and a rating bar. Yeah, we're going to need to populate the text view and the rating bar inside the current row. That's exactly right. We want to populate the restaurant name and rating into the matching text view and rating bar for each item in the list. So we take our view holder, our item view, and now we can refer to our name text view. And notice the parameters here on bind. We've got the view holder, we've got the position, so the index, and then each bind, it's got a model property. So when we implemented this interface, it automatically passes in the current restaurant object as the model. So we just want model dot, in this case, name. This will populate the restaurant name property into our name text view in the template. Then we need to deal with the rating bar. So we set the rating property Now notice our rating in our class is an int. But in the rating bar, this property is actually a float, so we need to convert it. So in order to match the type of the rating bar rating, we've got to convert it from an integer to a float. So here are both methods. I'll put them back up on the paste of code site and I'll refresh the link for you. I know it's going to generate a new link. I'll put the link in the chat. Yes, without it, no, if I take this out, I can't actually convert that without the null safety in case rating is null. So I'll get an error here. So only safe or non-asserted calls are allowed on a nullable receiver of int. In case our rating is null, it won't be able to do that conversion to a float. So we're going to need that. Yes, it will make it 0. There are a few different ways we could handle that. So again, this is Kotlin really at compile time telling us, we have to put in a check to try and prevent the null pointer exception. And Android Studio helps us, which is great. So there's our code. Now I can run the app right now, but our recycler view is still going to be empty. So what are we missing from here? This code looks good. When our view holder gets created, we're connecting it, we're binding it to our item restaurant. And then as we bind each item, we're setting the name text view and rating bar values based on our existing restaurant class. So I'll run it right now, but it's still going to be empty. I'll just make sure it runs and I don't get an error. But I'm not going to see any data yet. Good guess. We don't. I mean, that's actually the bind view holder is doing that, basically. We don't need to return anything. So Edwin, you're getting close. We've got the query on line 30. We've got the two inner classes, the view holder and the adapter. Yeah, we've got to bind the query to the adapter. So these methods are here, but they never actually get invoked. We've set up the adapter, but we're not actually using it yet, right? We're still blank. So in our onCreate, we now need a few lines of code to connect the query to the adapter. So we want to pass query results to the recycler adapter for display in RecyclerView. So we're going to set up options for our Firestore So we're going to build using our restaurant class for the adapter. And here we're going to pass our query. And we're binding it to our restaurant class. And we call .build. So this is going to basically create a list of restaurants in a format that Firestore can interpret. So now we need an adapter. Whoops. So we'll initialize it. Actually, you know what? I don't think we need this line. So we'll set up the options. Our query uses our restaurant class, and then we're going to bind the adapter here. And now we can bind our the data source or adapter of the RecyclerView. So this code should now call our view holder create and then our on bind. I'm just going to try it out. If it's running, I'll add the code online so you can check yours. And then we'll just need to add one more missing piece to this. So now when our app loads, okay, so we didn't get an error, but we still have no data. We are missing one more thing here, which is we need to tell our adapter to start listening for changes. So we need two overrides here. And this should be outside of the onCreate. We need to override onStart. You know what? I'm going to need to declare my adapter globally. So we need to call start listening. I am going to have to redeclare this, and we'll also need an on stop. So if we have an existing adapter object, we want to call stop listening. Now I'm getting these errors because I declared our adapter class locally in onCreate. So I'm going to need to move this. I'll take out the var here. Don't worry, I will put all the code online. I'm just going to try and fix it first. Oh, I'll just make it private. Okay. So I've declared a private adapter at the top. I will paste all the code for you to check. I know it's hard to see all of it. So I'm going to create it at the class level. In my onCreate, set it equal to our restaurant adapter with these options. So we'll instantiate it here. And then I want to call on start and on stop outside of onCreate. This should allow our adapter to start watching for changes. So I'll try this again. I'll see if it's running. Once it's running, I will put up the full code in the class. So our formatting could use a little bit of work. But when our adapter is listening, it fetches our data and updates our app. If I go back to the Firebase console, I've got a few test REST documents here. We'll just look at what happens in real time, how the adapter listening works. So I've got a few tests here. If I want to delete this document, right, our adapter is watching for changes at all times. So if I want to delete this one from my console, my data is up to date in real time. Probably needs a little bit of formatting. This is a little small, this is a little large, but we get the idea. I'll actually put everything except the package declaration online. So anything you need is here. So whenever we're using the recycler view, we've kind of got to go through these hoops. We need to declare an adapter globally in the class. Or as a private instance within the class. We're going to connect, use the Firecycler options to connect our query. We're going to set our adapter equal to that query bound to the class. And then we're going to bind it to our recycler view. We need to start listening for changes and also tell it when to stop listening. On create, we need to inflate the layout template. And on bind, we would populate each individual value into a view in our template. So it's quite a few steps. It's kind of complicated. And this is why I want to give you guys a chance to work with another recycler view in the project today. Now I can actually push, I will push this code up to GitHub for now. And it's 10 to 12. So this is L6 part 1. Bind recycler view. We're almost due to take a break. So I've pushed the code to GitHub so you can check it there. Hayden, I see you've got a question. Line 36. Okay, well, let's have a quick look. Too many arguments for internal constructor. For the adapter. So there's two classes passed to the adapter. There are restaurant class and our view holder inner class. Saying you can't pass options. First, check your declaration of the restaurant view holder. Make sure you've got the constructor here. And that it's of type RecyclerView.viewHolder. You can also check your imports at the top. and make sure you've got all the correct imports. I have pushed to GitHub, so you can also check there. Have a look there, see if you can find it. I'm going to stop the recording right now, and let's take a 10-minute break here. We'll come back in 10 minutes.